Hi boys and girls, happy Tuesday. I hope that this video finds you guys well. I hope you guys had a nice holiday and are doing well and enjoying your time. We're going to continue with the Unteachables today. We are coming towards the end of our story. If you look how much we have left, this is how much we have left. We are on chapter 27, and this is from Kiana's point of view. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Chapter 27, Kiana Rubini. The first day I'm officially a student in Mr. Kermit's class, Mr. Kermit doesn't even show up. It doesn't bother us at first. It reminds me of the beginning of the year, when Ribbit was late every day. It takes a long time to fill a cup of coffee, the size of a bathtub. I guess we get a little loud, but when Miss Fountain sticks her head in the room, we quiet down in a hurry. She's frowning. Where's Mr. Kermit? We stare back at her blankly. How should we know? We listen to her high heels clicking urgently down the hall. Do you think we're getting a sub? Asks Raheem. Please don't let it be Dawn of the Dead, Barnstorm groans. 10 minutes later, we hear running footsteps in the corridor, and Jake Terranova bursts into room 117. Hey, guys, sorry I'm late. Mr. Kermit can't make it today. Are you our sub? Parker asks. Not exactly, he tells us, but since you're coming to the dealership later anyway, Miss Fountain, well, why bring in a substitute just for a couple of hours? Is that legal? Mateo inquires. Technically, Miss Fountain is covering both classes. Think of me as an assistant. A volunteer. Is Mr. Kermit sick? Raheem asks. Nah, Jake shrugs this off. Not really. He might be a little upset. I jump on that. Upset about what? Jake is flustered. There's obviously something going on that we're not supposed to know about, and Jake has the kind of face that can't hide secrets. When you're the boss of a giant car dealership, you don't have to answer questions from your employees, because of what you say goes. But that doesn't work with a bunch of kids. It's the science test, isn't it? Aldo says belligerently. I flunked. Now Ribbit won't come to school. Barnstorm cackles. If that's how it went, you'd have been in an empty classroom your whole life. Is that it? Elaine rumbles. Did we fail the test? The babble of agitated voices grows louder until Jake waves his arms for quiet. He perches on the edge of the teacher's desk and motions us close. Okay, I'll tell you. But you have to promise not to say anything to her. He motions over his shoulders in the direction of Miss Fountain's room. What he reveals turns our blood to ice. Dr. Thaddeus, superintendent of the whole school district, has been out to get Mr. Kermit all year. He found a way to use our school scores on the state science test assessment to get rid of Ribbit and declare him an incompetent teacher. Pause there for a second, boys and girls. Incompetent is a big word, and I want you guys to think about what it means. So incompetent means you're not really good at doing your job. He'll be out of a job at the end of this term. I knew it, Aldo rages. We flunked the test. You didn't, Jake insists. None of you did. It's a numbers game. If you fiddle with them enough, you can get them to say almost anything. It's no game, I say bitterly. It's our teacher, and he's getting fired for no reason. Who does that guy Thaddeus think he is? Barnstorm growls. He's like Voldemort and Darth Vader rolled into one, Mateo adds. Miss Fountain appears in the doorway. Since Mr. Kermit's absent, I thought it would be nice if we both shared circle time today. She picked the worst possible time for that invitation. Circle time? When our teacher's getting shafted? A chorus of protests began in our throats, one Jake silenced by raising one warning finger. Circle time sounds great, Miss Fountain. Jake accepts on our behalf. We'll be right there. It's the last thing we're in the mood for. How can the superintendent be so mean? Why would he even want to? Maybe Mr. Kermit was a lousy teacher back in the crossword puzzle era, but now he's the greatest. As we grumble and see their way next door to room 115, I saddle up next to Jake. How can this be? I ask in distress. I know I got a 96, and if everybody else passed, that shouldn't add up to failure, no matter how much you crunch the numbers. He looks at me sympathetically. You have to understand, Kiana, you weren't a registered student on test day, so the 96 doesn't count. I stumble into Miss Mountain's classroom, my mind pinwheel. The news of the past few minutes has been a bomb blast, but this might be even worse. Our teacher is being fired, and sure, it's the superintendent's fault. It's the school's fault for not supporting Mr. Kermit. It might even be a little bit of Jake's fault for that cheating scandal so long ago. But mostly, it's my fault. If I was properly registered, Dr. Thaddeus would have to count my score. But no, I was a short-timer. This hick town and hick school had nothing to teach me. I was just passing through. So what difference did it make what happened here? Well, it's making a pretty big difference now. By the time we take our seats on the floor around the circle, I feel like my head is about to explode. A nervous murmur comes from Miss Fountain's students. They can sense the emotional upsets coming from the 7 of us. Vladimir is beeping like a robot in one of Mateo's sci-fi movies, but Aldo is too wound up to respond to his reptilian friend. Miss Fountain addresses the group. Who would like to be the first to contribute to our circle? It comes pouring out of me. It isn't Mr. Kermit's fault that I never registered, and now he's getting fired. It isn't fair. I've got a lot to say, a lot more, but my words trigger Aldo, who bursts out, I hated all teachers, until Ribbit came along, and teachers hated me, but then... Everyone thought I was weird before Mr. Kermit's class, Mateo blurts over him, like I was an android in a human world. Ribbit's the only person who notices what I'm good at instead of just what I'm bad at, Raheem adds to the clamor. I used to be stupid before Mr. Kermit, barks Parker. Nobody tried to get me any help. This school only cared about me when I was scoring touchdowns, Barnstorm blusters, but Ribbit's better than that. Even strong, silent Elaine speaks up in her deep voice. I never had any friends until this year. We're all talking at the same time, hollering to make ourselves heard. The 7th graders are really nervous. Vladimir is running crazed loops in his cage because Aldo's so upset. He's yelling louder than any of us, and his red hair is practically defying gravity. Miss Fountain is trying to restore order, but no one is paying any attention to her. Finally, she inserts both index fingers to her mouth and unleashes an ear-splitting whistle that threatens to have plaster raining down on us from the ceiling. It isn't every circle time, but it gets the job done. Silence falls and we stare at the young teacher in awe. How did such a large noise come from such a small person? Thank you, she says, her quiet self again. Now, where did you kids hear that Mr. Kermit won't be back at the end of this term? Nobody answers, but we all look over in Jake's direction. Miss Fountain glares at him. He shrugs helplessly. Just slipped out? Miss Fountain takes a deep breath. Mr. Terranova, please stay with my group while I take Mr. Kermit's students back to their own room. We've had enough of circle time today. She sweeps us back into room 117. This is so unfair. I'm still shaking with anger. How can they do this to Kermit? How can they do this to us? Miss Fountain tries to be sympathetic and reasonable at the same time. I agree with you, Kiana. It's very upsetting, but there is nothing we can do about it. Even Principal Vargas, this is above her level too. It comes straight from the district office. Parker is bitter. Mr. Kermit helped every single one of us. And what can we do to help him back? A big fat 0. Something stirs in the back of my head. Something I heard a long time ago. Something Miss Fountain said. And then I have it. The science fair. What about it? Barnstorm groans. We haven't had enough science for one lifetime. I turn to Miss Fountain. Remember on the bus ride back to Terra Nova Motors when you tried to convince Mr. Kermit to have us enter the science fair? She looks annoyed. That was supposed to be a private conversation. Well, I heard it. You told him the winning team gets 10 points added to all their scores on the science assessment. Would that be enough to put us over the top and save Mr. Kermit's job? Suddenly, all eyes are on Miss Fountain, waiting for her answer. I'm sure it would, she says finally. But remember, Mr. Kermit's answer was no to the science fair. Yeah, but that was before he got canned, Barnstorm reasons. That changes everything, right? She shakes her head. Mr. Kermit is a very private person. He wouldn't want you to take his personal problems onto yourself. But what if we don't tell him about it? Raheem muses. Be serious, Miss Fountain insists. He's still your teacher until the end of the term. How can you expect to do a science fair project and keep it secret from him? Terranova Motors! I exclaim. I bet Jake will let us work on it there. Miss Fountain, we can do this. I know we can. By now, the others are grouped around me, and we're confronting Miss Fountain as if daring her to say no. Entering doesn't mean you're going to win, she reminds us. But not entering means we lose for sure, Mateo counters. It'll be a long shot, the teacher warns. You don't have a topic yet, and other groups have been working for weeks. So it's a yes? I prompt. The cheers that erupts when Miss Fountain nods her head is enough to bring Jake running from the next room. He loves the idea and pledges to do everything he can to help us, courtesy of his dealership. Rule number 1, which Mateo calls the prime detective. Mr. Kermit is not to know about our project. If he finds out, the deal is off. We'll up our Terranova Motors visit to 3 afternoons per week. Miss Fountain will come with us if Mr. Kermit will look after her class. We'll work weekends too, whatever it takes. After lunch, Jake acts as our chaperone on the minivan over to the bus dealership. As excited as we are, the ride is somber. With Mr. Kermit's job on the line, the stakes are high. And we haven't even started planning yet. Do you really think we could pull this off? Parker asks. Have you seen the kind of kids who enter the science fair? They're like smart. There are different kinds of smart, Jake puts in positively. School is important, but there are things you can't learn from books. You mean the internet? Mateo asks. I mean street smarts, Jake explains. I was never the greatest student, but I knew how to scratch and claw and build a business. Trust me, guys, you have smarts coming out of your ears. That's what's going to give you the perfect project. But what is the project going to be? Aldo asks. That's what we have to figure out, I say. It can't be too simple, because we have to blow the judges away. But we don't have much time either. The science fair is in 3 weeks. The bus pulls into the dealership service area. We file out behind the pavement. We're about to enter when Parker points, Hey, isn't that Mr. Kermit's car? We all look. On a flatbed tow truck parked outside the service bay sits the rusted remains of an ancient Chrysler that might have been blue. Parts are strewn about it, also rusted and broken. Jake sighs, poor guy, like he doesn't have enough hanging over his head. Now he has to take taxis to school. When's he going to get it fixed? Mateo asks. You don't fix something like that, Elaine remarks. You give it a decent burial. Jake nods. I only towed it here to get it out of the school's driveway. Seems a shame to waste a whole car. Parker muses. There's no car, Barnstorm retorts. It's a pile of garbage. It was garbage even when Ribbit was still driving it. Hey, have some respect for the dead, I put in. Respect, Jake echoes. Emma says her mom picked out that Chrysler. It's older than she is. Mateo pipes up. You know that part in Harry Potter when Mr. Weasley uses magic to enchant an old car to make it fly? No, not now, Mateo, I try to say kindly. We have to come up with a topic for a science fair project. Well, that's just it, he insists. This car needs the respect, and we need a project. All that's missing is a little magic. So that's where we're going to stop today, boys and girls. So, I want you guys to think about so the problem we're coming to in our story is that Mr. Kermit is going to lose his job because the students haven't made enough improvement throughout their middle school career for him to keep his job. However, the students remember that if they get into the science fair and if they win the science fair, they get 10 points added to their assessment. Those 10 points would be able to help them outscore the other students and Mr. Kermit to keep his job. So now we see Mr. Kermit's old car, and the students, it seems, are going to use that for their science fair project. So think about what they can do with that old car for them to use in their science fair project. All right, guys, I hope you have an excellent Tuesday. Enjoy your day, boys and girls, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.